TreeHouse weakness is tied to the risk of their financial performance. These tight margins in this market really makes every penny matter, every SKU matter, every marketing decision and relationship will matter, especially as there's a lot of shaky ground right now as all of these things are being ironed out with the recent purchase of TreeHouse Foods. What this is going to look like in the future, how it's going to change their capabilities, it leaves investors uncertain. It leaves some of those contracts uncertain, what it's going to look like, what it's going to feel like, and should we be exploring other options? And the answer is no. TreeHouse will be a place you can continue to go to, but how do we make sure that that actually is the truth and really does happen for our organization? So this private label strength, this is something we really need to capitalize. This is something we need to capitalize on. And one of the ways we can do that is with the scalable operations, being able to produce safe, quality, nutritious food at a scalable rate and a scalable cost that will make all the difference for the manufacturer and also for the industry who are contracting these products, the distribution channels. Everyone needs to make their margins, and that leaves TreeHouse in a tighter squeeze every single step of the way. But making sure that we're maintaining those relationships, those long-term relationships will really be key to handle the volatility of the market and this transition time. TreeHouse, so they're one of the largest they are one of the largest private label manufacturers in North America, supplying retailers like Amazon, Kroger, Walmart. One of the reasons that it brings extra weight to TreeHouse when they go to the negotiation table with other vendors, distribution channels, and private label companies is that all these organizations do require third-party safety. All of these organizations do require third-party safety audits. So this is going to be employee safety, but most importantly, food safety. So things like SQF and their own network of internal auditors will make sure that their standard of practice, the standard of food safety is going to be carried throughout all their products and all their manufacturing facilities. These will make them even more marketable for future contracts with other organizations, making sure that we're really pivoting upon that. TreeHouse relies heavily on these large retailers, and it gives these customers significant buying power. This is really going to squeeze TreeHouse at every single step, like we mentioned before, and making sure that they are able to control their pricing in all of those little places that a few cents here and a few cents there really add up when you're talking about these large SKUs where you're producing millions of individual products. TreeHouse ability to control cost will be profound in being able to negotiate contracts and to withstand the high buying power of these vendors and the large retailers that they do work with, making sure that they are streamlining those processes, which ties right back to those scalable operations, and that they're making sure that they are as efficient as possible while not cutting those costs and cutting the corners, making sure they're as efficient as possible without cutting the corners and cutting safety measures. We talked about that financial risk. Their constraints that they have debt, they have restructuring efforts. You know, this is not a liquid organization that's going to be easily able to dispose of assets. The company faces financial challenges, debt, restructuring efforts, things we already chatted through a little bit ago. But making sure that we understand what that means, that it may impact them being able to make those short-term obligations, being able to make all the payments on time. You would think that an organization of this size would not have those issues, but it's being the liquidity that is really going to make that impact. So many of their assets are tied up into all these things that it makes it an organization without it's making an organization without a lot of ready cash on hand. And what does that look like for the future of TreeHouse? Making sure that we are capitalizing on those structural advantages, coming back to the relationships, the scalable operations, that's going to be also the places that we're going to be able to save costs and maximize the profits. Some of these places really are going to have low profitability and high dependence on these major customers, but how do we reduce our dependency going forward will be paramount. And so many great things are in store, and it's just positioning TreeHouse Foods in the right manner.